Okay, so then briefly on that. So we already sort of got into this a little bit yesterday, that Yitzchak is in the field when Rivka and Eliezer return from Haran, and then Rivka falls off the camel and then points to Yitzchak and says, "That's a man, you're an Eved," right? Really said to the Eved, "That's a man," right? Who is this man? So part of it is simply that I think Rav Bick makes this point, if I remember. I haven't looked at this in years. That part of it is to point out, and I think it might be from the Netziv, that this notion that Yitzchak is like an overwhelming personality, right? Like we don't really see it explicitly in Tanakh. That he is, or in Chumash, that he's an overwhelming personality. He seems much more passive than Avram. But the fact is that as soon as Rivka sees him, she just processes that there's something unique about him and is overwhelmed, right? So that's sort of one way of looking at it. It's simply vatipol, like she just, there's something awe-inspiring about him. Either that, or he's breathtakingly handsome. I don't know, right? Whatever, right? I don't know. Presumably, that his personality is quite powerful. Part of it may also be vatipol. Right, every time you have a woman falling off something in Tanakh, it's usually intentional. It does actually. It happens very often, and it's usually intentional.
Like Rachel.
What?
Like Rachel.
Well, she doesn't go off, but like Esther, right? Like Esther, right? Esther falls in front of Achashverosh, right? And that's obviously intentional, right? She's not like collapsing clumsily, and she's not, right? It's a calculated move to win the sympathies of Achashverosh, or when Ruth does it to Boaz, right? It's a right? These are calculated moves, and it may be that Rivka is it's the same thing. Now, I was listening to a shir yesterday by Vivian Hidary, where she was talking, among other things. One of the points she was talking about was this. She noted that it's not just that this Vatipol motif appears often in Tanakh, but the truth is that like Rivka and Esther, there's a lot of similarities to their personalities in Tanakh, which I never really processed. But when you think about it, it's actually quite striking. Right? She points out, for example, that in next week's parsha, what is all big events in the Megillah? Where do they happen?
The festival.
Yeah, at Mishteh. At Mishteh, beginning, right? The two parties of Esther that she makes for Haman and Achashverosh. But Rivka actually has a party also. When? With who? No.
Back in her tent.
So not actually. She actually has one next week's parsha with Yitzchak and Avimelech. Right? It's part of the story where she's abducted by the king. Right? Which is funny because that's exactly what happens to Esther. Right? Meaning it's not right that scene of being abducted by the king, right, and being taken to be the wife of a foreign monarch, and that happening in a party setting happens by Yitzchak and Rivka, and then she points out even more that and the parallel is even more impressive because what happens while she's in the palace of Avimelech or Achashverosh? What creates the whole drama in the story? Okay, what happens in the Megillah? What creates the drama in the whole story?
That she falls in front of him.
Before that, the whole story. What's the drama in the whole story? Yeah, but what's the drama in the story?
She's actually Jewish.
And
They don't know.
they don't know because
She's hiding.
Mordechai told her Asher lo tagid. And what is the drama in Yitzchak and Avimelech? The same thing, right? Don't say you are my sister. Don't say who you are. And that's what creates the drama, and that's what creates that last moment where Hashem has to swoop in and change it, because the whole drama with the foreign king, with the woman who's abducted, it all surrounds the fact that she only ends up there because the man in her life told her you aren't allowed to say who you are, right? So suddenly you realize, right, there are a series of parallels between these personalities. And she said, once you realize that, the fact that the Esther story, that last moment, right, is this calculated vatipol, right? It's not like an accidental, it's not like an overwhelming vatipol. It's a attempt to win sympathy, right? When that's the important thing to do, right? It suggests that maybe what's going on, right? It's not not just like she's overwhelmed and she just can't help herself and she falls off, right? But she's about to marry Yitzchak. She never met Yitzchak, right? She wants to right. This is like their meeting. Remember, we said Yitzchak gets betrothed at the well. He just isn't there, right? When they actually meet, right? When she's making a first impression, right? When she's first sort of figuring out her relationship here. So vatipol, right? And there is, right, what does it do, right? It creates the feeling that, again, she's impressed by him, adoration, things like that, which is important in the relationship, even though the truth in the relationship is what? Right? And this is the striking thing, is that she falls off, she's overwhelmed by him, or at least she's going out of her way to express that. Right? She's clearly impressed by him, but what's the irony of the whole Rivka story?
She's the object of the relationship.
Yeah, but she's the mover and shaker in this, right? She's the one who understands things. She's the political, right? The politically smart one, right? And Vivian Hidary points out the parallels go on, right? Meaning Rivka, at the heart of the Megillah story, right? What sets the groundwork for the Jews being saved is Mordechai doing what?
Saving the king's life.
Saving the king's life. Through who? Through Esther, right? Mordechai tells Esther, Esther saves the king's life, and that's what sets the backdrop for the future saving of the Jewish people, right? And Rivka's role in next week's parsha is to do the same, right? Rivka is the one who's calculating through deception and through explicit instruction how to get Yaakov what he needs, and then how to save his life from Esav, who now wants to kill him, right? There are these. So what that conclusion seems to lead to is that it's not a passive vatipol, right? Rivka is really a very calculated, in fact, the more dominant personality in the Yitzchak Rivka relationship, right? She's the one who is more active, she's the one who's more assertive, and he's the one who's more passive. And yet, at this first moment when she meets Yitzchak, vatipol. Right? So she suggests, right, that indicates not that it's like mere being overwhelmed. That this is a calculated reaction by Rivka, right? It's a way of, right? Again, that doesn't mean she wasn't overwhelmed by Yitzchak. It just means that it's not, right, she's not just like, swooning over Yitzchak and just falls off, right? It's that she sees him, she's impressed by him, and part of, therefore, starting the relationship is to express that in a way that will be beneficial to the relationship, which it is, right? Because that moment when she falls off and she says to Eliezer, the Eved, whatever, who is this person? He explains it, right? That's right. Everything there, right? The way she covers her face at that point, right? It's clear that at that point, once she realizes what's going on, right? She is planning how to start this relationship. And this is what, right? And it's that first moment that successfully makes it that Yitzchak brings her into his house to be his wife. Vayinachem acharei imo, right? It's clear that whatever she did, it worked, right? At the beginning of the relationship, she successfully managed it such that Yitzchak accepted her as a wife and was emotionally satisfied, such that he was able to recover. So it is a bit weird, right? Again, the two possibilities, I think, are to look at this as sort of a passive thing, highlighting the overwhelming personality of Yitzchak, or at least the awe-inspiring personality of Yitzchak, and that's one way of reading it, right? That she just falls off because, the Torah wants to emphasize this is an ish, right? This is a person you look, and she's just like, right, everything she thought she knew, right? She thought Eliezer was great, now she realizes he's great, that's one possibility, but when you realize that doesn't fit with Rivka's personality, sort of the rest of Chumash, and you realize that every time you have vatipol, it's often women acting in ways where they're seeming passive, even though they're active, right? Whether it be Rus or Rivka or Esther, where they fall to get the sympathies of the person they need, but it's part of a plan, right? That would indicate this isn't a passive one. This was a decision for Rivka to express the way she was overwhelmed by Yitzchak, such that he would be able to relate to her, such that he would, right, as a good sort of, first date and marriage all at the same time. Whatever, these things happen. So those, I think, are two basic basic things. Presumably, again, the Vatipol has something to do, whether it's passive or active, with showing that you are impressed by the man in the story. So that's a bit to think about on it.